She broke into a billionaire's penthouse on a drunken dare. Just 1 hour in a stranger's bed, nothing more. But when Nora Blake opened her eyes, the man beside her wasn't just anyone. He was Damian Cross, the most untouchable name in tech. What began as a humiliating mistake turned into a raw, breathtaking connection neither of them expected. Betrayal, media scandals, and painful goodbyes couldn't destroy what was real. But would they survive the noise or lose each other forever? Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that will move your heart and soul. The music pulsed like a heartbeat too loud to ignore, the lights flickering in dizzy strobe, and the shots, well, they were doing their job a little too well. Nora Blake wasn't the kind of girl who usually accepted dares. She was the type to triple-check the locks before bed, color-code her planner, and keep her secrets tucked beneath layers of silence. But heartbreak did strange things. And tequila? Even stranger. So when her best friend Kennedy shouted over the chaos, "I dare you, 1 hour, penthouse bed, no chickening out," Nora just laughed. Not because it was funny, but because everything else hurt too much. It was nearly 2 in the morning when she stumbled into the velvet-lined elevator of the Avalon Crown Hotel, heels dangling from her fingers, mascara smudged from dancing and crying, though no one could tell which caused what. Top floor, Kennedy slurred beside her, giggling like this was just another college prank. But Nora's heart was pounding, not from excitement, but from that same hollow ache that had opened up when she walked into her boyfriend's studio apartment less than 24 hours ago and found him kissing their design professor. "I thought we were on a break," he had said, pulling away with all the grace of a coward. A break apparently meant a full betrayal, and 3 years together suddenly evaporated into nothing but awkward apologies and the click of a door closing behind her. That's why, when Kennedy shoved a drink into her hand at the party, she didn't say no. When someone started playing Truth or Dare, she didn't back away. And when they dared her to sneak into a stranger's suite, some empty billionaire-owned penthouse no one used, she didn't hesitate. The elevator chimed, floor 37. The hallway was quiet, blanketed in luxury. Plush red carpet, sconces that flickered like candlelight, silence so thick it muffled even the buzz in her head. Nora counted doors, 5 down, 2 on the right. The one they said was always unlocked, for emergencies or mistresses, someone had joked earlier. Her breath caught as her fingers brushed the cool brass handle. It gave way. The door opened with a whisper. Inside, the suite was a universe away from anything she'd ever known. Wide open space, gleaming marble floors, a view of the city that felt like the sky had cracked open just for her. A bottle of unopened champagne sat in a silver bucket. She ignored it. The bedroom called to her like a siren. The lights were dimmed, but the massive bed was turned down like it had been waiting for her. She hesitated only a second. Just 1 hour. That's all the dare required. Crawl into the bed, stay 60 minutes, and sneak out before sunrise. She peeled off her dress with a trembling hand and folded it over a nearby chair. Her skin prickled as she slipped beneath the sheets, crisp, cool, and expensive. The mattress cradled her like a secret, and for the first time in days, she exhaled. "This is insane," she whispered, curling into a ball, eyes fluttering shut. But the room was warm, the city far below, and the heartbreak had quieted just enough to let her breathe. "Just 1 stupid hour," she murmured. She didn't hear the front door open, didn't hear the footsteps crossing the marble. She didn't see the man who stepped into the suite with a loosened tie and tired eyes. Damian Cross walked through his penthouse expecting silence. Instead, he found a stranger sleeping in his bed. Naked, vulnerable, like she belonged. He paused, motionless. And for reasons he couldn't name, he didn't call security. He simply exhaled, loosened his tie further, and walked to the other side of the bed. Without touching her, without a word, he slid under the sheets, eyes open to the ceiling, heart hammering like a man staring at the past and future all at once. The sunlight filtered through sheer curtains, soft and indifferent to the chaos brewing beneath the sheets. Nora blinked awake slowly, her body warm and sore in places that didn't make sense. For a moment, she thought she was home, until the scent hit her. Not her usual cheap linen spray or Kennedy's coconut shampoo, but something darker, cedar. Whiskey, leather, masculine. Her body stiffened as she turned her head and froze. There was a man lying next to her, facing away, shirtless, broad shoulders exposed, his dark hair tousled like he'd been through hell or a long night of no sleep. Her breath hitched. She clutched the sheet against her chest and tried not to panic, but he stirred. His head turned slowly, deliberately, until his eyes locked on hers, not wide with shock, not narrowed in rage, just calm, curious, controlled. "You're not my usual wake-up call," he said, voice smooth like velvet dragged across steel. Nora's mouth opened, but nothing came out. "Don't scream," he added, sitting up and stretching as if he hadn't just found a stranger in his bed. "I hate noise before coffee." I thought this was empty," she stammered, her voice cracking like glass. "It was a dare. I didn't know anyone actually lived here." He looked at her like he was peeling back layers of her mind. "Who dared you?" She flushed deeper, curling tighter beneath the sheet. "My friends, they said this penthouse was always empty, that no one stayed here. I'm sorry, I didn't mean." "You clearly didn't," he cut in, standing now, walking toward a black silk robe draped over the back of a sleek leather chair. His movements were effortless, unbothered, like he did this kind of thing every day, though something about the tension in his jaw suggested otherwise. "Get dressed," he said, voice quieter now. "We need to talk." Nora's heartbeat spiked. "Talk? You broke into my suite, slept in my bed, you're still here." He turned, now fully dressed, arms crossed over his chest. "You're lucky I'm not pressing charges." Her cheeks burned as she scrambled for her dress, fingers fumbling. "I'll leave, right now." He didn't move, just watched her with unnerving stillness. "What's your name?" "Nora." "Nora," he repeated, like the name was unfamiliar in his mouth. "I'm Damien." She already knew. Everyone knew who Damien Cross was. Tech genius, billionaire, the man who took bankrupt ideas and spun them into gold. Cold, private, impossibly untouchable, and now terrifyingly close. She clutched the doorknob, ready to vanish, but his voice stopped her. "Come back tomorrow, 10 a.m., she blinked. "What?" "I want to understand," he said, "why a girl like you ended up in a place like this." "I'm not," she started, then stopped. "I didn't mean to." "I know," he replied, "but you did." And for reasons Nora couldn't explain, she nodded. That night, she didn't sleep. Not because of fear, though fear coiled tight in her chest like a sleeping snake, but because of something else. Something that pulled at her thoughts like a thread she couldn't ignore. The way Damien had looked at her, not with desire, not even with judgment, but with a kind of quiet curiosity that made her feel more real than she had in months. By morning, she almost backed out. She sat on the edge of her twin mattress, apartment quiet, except for the hum of the old fridge, watching the clock creep toward 10. Her fingers trembled as she pulled on jeans and the cleanest white t-shirt she could find. No makeup. Just a braid to hide the shake in her hands. The elevator ride to the top floor of Wolf Tower felt like ascending into another life. When the doors opened directly into Damien's office, she stepped out into a world of glass, steel, and silence. And there he was, back turned to her, staring out at the skyline like it was just another puzzle to solve. "You came," he said, not turning. "I don't know why," she admitted. He turned then, slowly, deliberately, "because thought something about last night shook you. Same as it did me." They talked for hours, about nothing and everything. Damien didn't interrogate her like she expected. He asked simple questions, his tone steady, his eyes sharp but not cruel. He wanted to know who she was, where she came from, what made her laugh, what made her shut down. She told him about Oregon, about her mom working double shifts at a bakery and her dad disappearing before her 10th birthday. About putting herself through school with part-time jobs and sketching people on the subway for cash. She didn't tell him about the cheating ex-boyfriend or how she'd stopped drawing for weeks until the dare. But he didn't press. He listened. "I'm not used to talking like this," she admitted. Her fingers wrapped tightly around a mug of untouched coffee. Damien sat across from her, jacket off, sleeves rolled to the elbows. "Neither am I." A silence stretched between them, soft, charged, not uncomfortable. Over the next few days, something strange began. Nora kept coming back. She didn't know why, and he didn't ask. Some mornings she brought croissants, others she sat on the windowsill, sketchpad on her knees while he took calls. They talked between silences. She asked about his childhood, and he told her only that he'd learned not to trust people too easily. She asked why he never smiled in photos, and he said, because most of them are lies. It wasn't friendship, not exactly, but it wasn't romance either. It was something suspended in between, something fragile. The tension grew quietly. Every brush of her hand when passing a cup, every glance that lingered a second too long. But they never touched. It was like both of them were afraid that one wrong move would shatter the spell. Damien's staff noticed. His assistant began scheduling his meetings around Miss Blake's visits, though no one ever called it that aloud. It just became understood. One morning she left a sketch on his desk. Him, standing by the window, skyline behind him, jaw drawn sharp in ink. He picked it up with both hands like it was glass. "You made me look human," he said. "You are," she replied. "You just hide it well." But the outside world wasn't as quiet as their office. Rumors began to buzz, first soft, then louder. Someone snapped a photo of Nora walking into Wolf Tower, posted it anonymously. Another found her sketch of Damien, one she'd shared on a forgotten student portfolio site, and attached it to a gossip blog post. "Who's the girl in Damien Cross's office?" The article called her mysterious, then manipulative, accused her of using artistic charm to seduce a billionaire. Another post speculated she was pregnant. Nora stared at her phone in horror as the images spread like oil on fire. The next morning, her classmates stared. Her professors avoided eye contact. By noon, she'd received 3 emails from the university's administration suggesting she take a personal leave. When she showed up at Wolf Tower, her shoulders were hunched, her voice barely there. Damien took one look and knew. "They found you," he said. She nodded. "They found everything." He reached across the desk, a rare gesture. "I'll make it stop." "You can't," she whispered. "They already decided who I am. You think I care what they think?" "I care," she said, her voice shaking, "because I didn't want to be your scandal." He stood then, walked around the desk, and looked at her, not with pity, but with something harder. "Thrialler, you're not a scandal," he said. "You're the only thing that feels honest." She didn't respond, just stared at the floor until his voice broke through again, quieter now. "You made me feel something I haven't felt in years." Her breath caught. "What?" "Alive." And for the first time, she let him see the tears in her eyes. Not from weakness, but from knowing that this, whatever this was, wasn't going to be easy. And maybe, just maybe, that's what made it real. The charity gala was supposed to be low-key. No red carpet, no press invites. Just donors, champagne, and the kind of curated smiles Damien had perfected over the years. But nothing ever stayed quiet when his name was attached. He asked Nora to come with him. Not as a date, not with pressure, just be there. He said, "I'll feel less alone." She borrowed a dress from her classmate, a simple black satin slip, and tied her hair back in a loose knot. No makeup, just lip balm and nerves. When she stepped into the hotel lobby, Damien nearly forgot how to breathe. "You clean up well," he murmured. "Don't get used to it," she replied, though the faint blush on her cheeks betrayed her. They didn't cling to each other that night. They barely spoke. He shook hands, smiled for photos, and delivered a short speech. She stayed near the edge of the crowd, sipping sparkling water and pretending to know what to do with her hands. But every time their eyes met across the ballroom, something unspoken passed between them, something that wasn't pretending. Near the end of the evening, she slipped out onto the balcony, desperate for air. Damien followed minutes later, loosening his tie. "You look uncomfortable," he said softly. "I'm not used to pretending," she replied, staring out over the glittering skyline. "Neither am I." She looked at him, her expression open in a way that made his chest ache. "Then why do you do it?" His voice was low, tired. "Because pretending is easier than being seen." Nora's reply was barely a whisper. "I see you." He turned to face her then, really face her. The wind tugged at her hair, but she didn't look away. And for the first time he reached out, not to pull her close, not to possess, but to hold her hand. It was electric, gentle, real. They didn't say another word. They didn't need to. The silence said enough. That night, she didn't go home. They returned to his penthouse, the same one she'd stumbled into on a dare weeks ago. But this time, it wasn't about chaos. It was about choice. She stood by the window as he loosened his tie again, watching the lights below shimmer like fallen stars. "You still haven't asked me to stay," she said. "I was waiting for you to want to," he replied. "I never wanted to leave." He stepped behind her, close but not touching. Her body tensed, not with fear, but with anticipation. She turned to him slowly, her hands trembling as they reached for the collar of his shirt. "I don't know what I'm doing," she admitted, half laughing. He stilled her hands with his. "Neither do I, but we'll figure it out together." And that was all the permission she needed. They moved carefully, reverently. Each button undone felt less like surrender and more like trust. They didn't rush. When his hand found the small of her back, she leaned in. When her shirt fell away, she didn't hide. She met his gaze, steady, brave. "I've never," she began. "I know," he said gently. "I won't rush you. I'm not afraid of the pain," she whispered. "I'm afraid of what happens after." He pressed a kiss to her forehead. "After, you'll still be Nora, and I'll still be me, but maybe we'll finally stop pretending we're not alive." When their bodies finally met, it wasn't perfect. It was real, hesitant and raw, breathless. She gasped, not from discomfort, but from the sheer closeness of it, emotional more than physical. No barriers, no defenses, just her and him and the echo of everything they were too afraid to say. Later, tangled in the warmth of soft sheets and softer silence, she rested her head on his chest. His heartbeat pulsed steady beneath her ear. "I didn't expect it to feel like that," she whispered. "Like what?" "Like being seen and touched at the same time." His fingers threaded gently through her hair. "That's because no one ever bothered to earn both." She smiled, sleep tugging at her eyes. "You did." "So did you," he said, his voice breaking the last of the distance. And for once, neither of them felt invisible. The days after that night unfolded like pages Nora hadn't meant to turn. Mornings started in Damien's office with quiet coffee and lingering glances. She didn't move in, didn't need to. Her sketchpad stayed on his desk, her laughter echoed in the corners of his penthouse, and her absence on the days she couldn't come felt like a room with no windows. Damien shifted too, subtly but unmistakably. He canceled meetings without explanation, rearranged entire days just to fit in their hour of silence or shared takeout. He had never needed anyone. Until now. Nora didn't ask for anything. She still rode the subway, still split groceries with Kennedy, still took freelance design work to cover rent. She never bragged, never posted, never hinted that her mornings were spent sketching beside the most unreachable man in New York. But maybe she should have, because hiding didn't keep them safe. It began with a headline, "From Dare to Mistress," followed by a grainy photo of her stepping out of Damien's car. Then another, screenshots of her private sketch site, the drawing she made of him at the window, exposed, captioned, mocked. The internet twisted her into someone else entirely. Seductress, opportunist, virgin turned villain. Damien's team acted fast. Lawyers sent takedown notices, PR scrubs began, but it was too late. The blogs wouldn't back off, they had sources. Anonymous quotes claimed she'd trapped Damien, that she was the reason he'd started canceling overseas deals, that he was falling apart. Nora shut down her website, deleted her social media, stopped answering messages from classmates and professors alike. Her art studio went silent. She barely ate. Damien tried to shield her, but he couldn't unsee the shift in her eyes, how they stopped lighting up when she walked into his office. One night, he found her curled up on the couch in the penthouse, knees drawn to her chest, headphones in, but no music playing. He sat beside her in silence. "It's not true," he said quietly. "I know," she whispered. "But it doesn't matter. They believe it anyway." He took her hand. "I'll fix it." "You can't fix the way people look at me now." "Then let them look," he said. "I don't care." "I do." Her voice cracked. "Because I never wanted to be your scandal." He knelt in front of her, his eyes stormy but steady. "You're not. You're the only part of my life that makes sense." She blinked fast. "Then why does it feel like we're always holding our breath?" He didn't answer. Because she was right. Every moment since the article dropped had felt like walking on ice. Even when they smiled, even when they touched, the crackling pressure never faded. That night, while Damien slept in his office chair after working late to salvage a partnership, Nora packed a small bag. Just a few clothes, a sketch pad, her train pass. She left a note on the kitchen counter. Not an explanation, just 3 words, "I'm so sorry." When Damien found it the next morning, something inside him didn't just break, it collapsed. Not the cold, strategic part of him, the part that could fire a board member without blinking, but the human part, the fragile, unfinished part she'd made him believe still existed. He didn't call his team, didn't call security. He drove himself across the city, checking every bookstore, cafe, art supply shop she'd once mentioned. Days passed. The media moved on. But he didn't. Not inside. One rainy Thursday, a package arrived at his office. No return address. Inside, the silver necklace he'd given her. A tiny star charm she used to wear tucked under her shirt. Beneath it, a note in her handwriting. "This was yours before me. It shouldn't remind you of pain." That evening, Damien canceled everything. Every call, every trip, every meeting. "Are you stepping down?" his assistant asked. He looked out the window, eyes clearer than they had been in weeks. "No," he said. "I'm stepping toward something I should have chosen a long time ago." And he left, not just the office, not just the city skyline, but the version of himself that thought power mattered more than truth. Because the only thing that mattered now was finding the girl who once dared to lay in his bed like she belonged. Because somewhere along the way, she had. Sometimes, life's most unexpected moments lead us to the people we never knew we needed. Nora didn't plan to fall into Damien's world. In fact, her story began with heartbreak, humiliation, and a stupid dare she never should have accepted. But what started as a mistake unfolded into something rare, an honest connection, unfiltered by power or perfection. The lesson here isn't about fate or fairy tales. It's about choosing to show up for someone when it's messy, when it's inconvenient, when it's terrifying. Nora and Damien weren't perfect. They were scarred, misunderstood, and often unsure of what came next. But they stayed. They didn't run when the world turned cruel. They faced it, together. In a society obsessed with image, they remind us that being seen is more powerful than being admired. That vulnerability, when met with care, becomes strength. And that sometimes love isn't loud or dramatic. It's in the quiet gestures, the trust rebuilt day by day, the decision to stay when it would have been easier to leave. So if you've ever felt invisible, out of place, or like your story doesn't matter, remember this: the right people won't ask you to shrink. They'll make space for your truth. Even if that truth begins in chaos. Where are you watching this story from? I'd love to know what city or country you're in. And if this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow this channel for more emotional, powerful stories like this one. Your support means the world.